Good. All right. All right, we ready to roll? If you want a sheet, they're back there. I kind of broke down the blessing on one page for you, so if that helps, you're welcome to that. Chapter 48. 48. We're going to do 48, 49, 50. And then take a week off. That sound like a plan? We'll take next week off, and then we'll come back with Exodus. Just keep the story going. Just jump 40 something, 80 something years in advance. Jump about 80 years. So, all right, 48. All right, sometime after this. All right, what's after this? What has transpired the after this part? Everybody is enslaved in Egypt. In Egypt, very important point. So we haven't got to that Israelites being enslaved yet. I don't want you to crisscross over that. Yeah, we got the family to Egypt. Now, how old is Joseph when the family moves to Egypt? 40-ish. Good. Okay. So he comes into power, if you want to call it that, at 30. 7 years of good, and then 2 years, and then get the family there. So ballparking it about 40. Okay. We know that Jacob is going to live there for 17 years before he dies. Okay. So that puts him at 57 years old, then serving the Pharaoh for 27 years, some kind in that ballpark. So sometime after this is we're catching up where Jacob's literally about to die, not like I'm going to die and 30 years later he's still alive. Okay. Joseph was told, your father is weaker. So Joseph, set out with his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, your son Joseph has come to you, Israel summoned his strength and sat up in bed. Okay. So he's not kidding, really going to die. And Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz. Now, what is Luz? The town of Luz is also known as Bethel. All right. Bethel means what? Think about this. Bet means house. El is Elohim. All right. The house of God. All right. It met me there at Luz or Bethel in the land of Canaan and blessed me. He said to me, I will make you fruitful and numerous. I will make you make many nations come from you. I'll give you this land as an eternal possession to your future descendants. Again, what's always the promise? The promise given to Abraham, Isaac, and then to Jacob was what? I promise you the land, and I promise you offspring. Okay? So that's why we call it the promised land, in case you've ever been curious. That's the promise. All right? And this promise was given to him. There was one moment where he goes to Bethel and on his way out of town, and this is on his way back into town. All right? So he's gotten past the whole second Esau interaction where he's not sure if he's going to live through this. God gives him the promise, everything's going to be cool, you'll be all right. And that's what he's referring to here. So we don't know exactly the date. I would guess we're about 50 years after the fact, my guess. Okay? Verse 5 says, your 2 sons born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are now mine. Now that's a pretty bold statement. Imagine your parents coming to you and go, Amber, your kids, they're mine. Your kid is mine now. And you go, all right. When can you come get them? All right. I don't see me ever doing this. The grandchildren are now mine, and I will take them. And Ephraim and Manasseh belong to me, just as Reuben and Simeon do. Children born to you after them will be yours and will be recorded under the names of their brothers with regard to their inheritance. Now, here's an interesting thing that we think he's doing here. We think he is giving Joseph the birthright blessing. Okay? Now think about this. What does the birthright give the oldest? Birth, the right of the birth, the right of the firstborn. What was that? You get a double portion of the inheritance, okay? And so what they think is going on here, and this is kind of backed up in Ezekiel 47. You don't need to go there. But what he's saying is, your 2 sons will be part of the 12 tribes. All right, so it won't just be you having one portion of land as the birthright. You will now have 2 portions of land, or your offspring will now possess 2 portions of land, a double blessing. Is everybody okay with that? It doesn't really matter. I'm just telling you. That's kind of the way we explain this away. All right. Verse 7, when I was returning from Paddan, to my sorrow, Rachel died along the way. How'd she die? In childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin. Good. Died along the way, some distance from Ephrath in the land of Canaan. I buried her there along the way in Ephrath, that is in Bethlehem. Okay. So it's going to get interesting because we're going to bury some people, but Rachel is not buried where all the rest of the family is buried, right? All right. Rachel's tomb is there in Bethlehem. You can still go there, see it today. So when Israel, or Jacob, saw Joseph's sons, he said, "Who are these?" Which, gotta love grandparents go, "Who are these 2?" Those are mine, but who are these? Joseph said, "These are my sons God's given me here." Jacob said, "Bring them to me, and I will bless them." Now his eyesight was poor because he was old. He could hardly see, and Joseph brought them to him. He kissed and embraced them. Israel said to Joseph, "I never expected to see your face again, but now God has let me see your offspring." Then Joseph took them from his father's knees and bowed with his face to the ground. Any clues there? Took them from his father's knees. They're probably little, yeah, unless it's really an awkward situation of a 20-year-old sitting on the lap of this man who's about to die, who had to summon his strength to get up in bed, and now Court and Caden sitting on either side of him. So hopefully they're little. All right. 13, and then Joseph took them both. Now here's Moses, for whatever reason, gets very explicit here, okay? Then Joseph took them both. Joseph takes both of the sons. With his right hand, Ephraim toward Israel's left, Jacob's left side. With his left hand, he took Manasseh toward Israel's right side, okay? See what I'm saying? Moses is getting very explicit which hand so what is he doing here? He's taking Manasseh and placing him where? To have the right hand placed on him, okay? And Joseph is literally taking his hands, moving his kids in place so that they will be blessed properly. Manasseh the firstborn, Ephraim the secondborn, okay? He brought them to Israel. 14, but Israel stretched out his right hand and put it on the head of Ephraim, the younger, and crossing his hands, put his left hand on Manasseh's head, although Manasseh was the firstborn. Why? Why would he do that? It just makes no sense. There's no explanation to it. There's no real benefit to being Ephraim over Manasseh specifically, all right? Actually, Manasseh actually gets more territory than anybody. So it's just a very odd little story that is added to the list of very odd stories in Genesis, that he's got the kids right there. All he has to do is reach out his hands and bless them accordingly. But for some reason, he switches his hands. I don't know, but I don't. That would be an explanation, but again, there's no justification for that. And even when Joseph calls him out on it, he's like, "No, I'm good. I'm just going to do it this way." It's like, all right, grumpy old grandpa doing his thing. Okay. 15 says, then he blessed Joseph. He blessed Joseph very specifically and said, "The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day," Psalm 23, shout out right there, "the angel who has redeemed me from all harm." All right. How much harm has Jacob avoided in his life? Esau. Then Laban, father-in-law, got away from him. Then came back and met Esau. How did that go? Pretty well. All right. Shechem, that whole Shechem moment, all right? The famine, he's been saved from the famine. So, yeah, he can speak to this. May he bless, may this God bless these boys, and may they be called by my name and the names of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac. All right? So understand the importance of when you have a name, when a name is given to you or a name you possess. And this is not so much your first name, it's more of your surname or your father's name. Okay? So may they be called by my name, Israel. And may they also be called by the sons of Abraham and the sons of Isaac. So when we talk about taking the Lord's name in vain, we are not talking about cuss words. Okay? Just be very clear on this. It has absolutely nothing to do with saying cuss words or saying any reference to any word of that. No, it is taking the name of God, possessing this name, and living in a manner that would not honor that name. Ashley took my last name, okay? And so now she took the name Rainwater, but if she acts unfaithfully to me, she is treating that name how? She took that name how? In vain. So the Israelites, to have taken the name, to be called by the God of Yahweh, all right, but to not act faithfully to that would be what? Taking the Lord's name in vain. You see the difference here? Okay. It really drives me crazy when people go, oh, you said a cuss word. That's taking the Lord's name in vain. No, that's not, no. That's not at all. It's way bigger than that, which it usually is. Okay? Always remember the names. And may they grow to be numerous within the land. Which land? May they grow to be numerous within the land. Where are they? They're in Egypt. But why would he want them to be numerous in Egypt and not in Canaan? We don't know. 17. Just a good question. Thank you. All right. When Joseph saw that his fathers had placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, he thought it was a mistake, and he took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's. Joseph said to his father, not that way, my father. This one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. But he too will become a tribe, and he too will be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother will be greater than he, and his offspring will become a populous nation. So he blessed them that day with these words, the nation Israel will invoke blessings by you, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh, putting Ephraim before Manasseh. Does that clear it up? Now you understand why he flipped the hands? No, not at all. It's like, all right, Moses, if it works for you, all right. But I just think it's a funny scene of Joseph trying to take his hand and moving the hands around. So if you have the older parents or grandparents that you've tried to help them with something, and they're like, no, leave me alone, I'm good. All right. 21. Then Israel said to Joseph, Jacob says to Joseph, look, I'm about to die. No, seriously, it's 17 years later, I'm about to die. But God will be what? With you. Remember that promise. Remember that line. Always circle that, put a line under it, highlight it, whatever you got. God will be with you and will bring you back to the land of your fathers. Okay, now that's a promise and a sign that's been given repeatedly, correct? Abraham, Genesis 15, was given the promise of land and offspring, and the sign was there will be a 400-year period. You will be strangers in this land, meaning you will have no possession of this land at all, which is that burial plot was a unique moment. You'll be strangers, you will be oppressed, and you will be enslaved. Now, it doesn't say you will be enslaved for 400 years, okay? It's talking about this whole period of strangers, enslaved, and oppressed for a period of 400 years. Okay, you just got to do the math on this. It's real easy. All right, and then you will plunder, or I will mess those people up, plagues, and you will plunder the people, and I will bring you back to this land in the 4th generation, because the sin of the Amorites, the people who live in Canaan, has not met its full measure. So in the fourth generation, what does it tell you about the sin of the Amorites? It has met its full measure. And so when God tells him, kill all the people in the promised land, is that just genocide for the fun of it? No, it is God's judgment on the people whose sin has met its full measure. And so God uses the Israelites to extinguish the people whose sin has met its full measure. Does that make sense? So if you ever get cornered on that one, it's just God genocide. No, it's just God judgment. All right? Because it very specifically says you'll be this. Now, that means it'll be 4 generations. So 4 generations come. So if you want to do the math, Levi, Kohath, Amram, and then Moses is the 4th generation who brings them back. Okay? But this is his promise. I'm about to die. God will be with you and will bring you back. Over and above what I'm giving your brothers, I'm giving you the one mountain slope that I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and bow. We think there was one little place in Shechem, just outside of Shechem, where he actually had a possession, but it's sort of an odd little thing. All right, 49. Then Jacob called his sons and said, gather them around, and I will tell you what will happen to you. What do you have? On the sheet it says, in the days to come. Anybody have their Bible out that can look at it? In the days to come is the CSB. Anybody? It's literally in the last days. The eschaton hemera, which means the end days, or the last days, which a lot of people take this as some of these, if not all of these, are some type of prophetic end time prophecy that's going to take place. So, interesting the way he words that. 2, come together and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to your father. 3, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, and the first fruits of my virility, excelling in prominence, excelling in power, period. How's it going so far for Reuben? That's my boy right there, all right? Yeah. All right. 4th, here's where it turns turbulent as water. You will no longer excel because you got into your father's bed and you defiled it. He got into my bed. Now you're going, what in the world is that? Remember Bilhah, the maidservant of Rachel? She and Reuben kind of got into their father's bed. Now, imagine dad's about to die. 50 years ago, you made a mistake. And on his deathbed, he says what? You're the sign of my virility, but remember what you did 50 years ago? Mm-hmm. Yep, not my sign anymore. That great parenting or what? Wouldn't you love to know your dad is still holding on to that one moment of stupid? All right. 5, Simeon and Levi are brothers. Thanks. Appreciate you sharing with us. Their knives are vicious weapons. May I never enter their council. May I never join their assembly. For in their anger they kill men. Who is that? What is that referring to? Shechem, yeah. When Dinah is raped and they go in and trick the whole city into getting circumcised, and then they go in and just kill everybody, all right? And what's Jacob doing here again? Yeah, I remember that moment when you almost got us all killed. Yeah, I'm not messing with y'all, all right? For in their anger they kill men, and on a whim they hamstring oxen. Their anger is cursed, for it is strong, and their fury, for it is cruel. I will disperse them throughout Jacob and scatter them throughout Israel. All right, let's back this up. 7, their anger is cursed, for it is strong, and their fury is cruel. A lot of people like to bring out the idea that this is the prophetic words or the blessing given to Levi. Levi is what tribe? What's their responsibility? They are the priests, and they are the ones who administer and carry what? The law. So in Levi, we have this symbol of the law, and the blessing here is that their anger is cursed, for it is strong, and their fury, for it is cruel. That the law itself is cruel. Why? Why would the law be regarded as cruel? Paul very clearly says, no, the law is good, it's holy, it's all these things. But what happens when you break the law? It's cruel, right? Is there any bending? Is there anything in the law that goes, well, you didn't mean to, or you didn't really intend to do? No, this is what it is, and it's cruel. And I think that's kind of brought out in the text. Interesting here, this last line, I will disperse them throughout Jacob and scatter them throughout Israel. If you looked at a map of Israel and the tribal allotments, where is Levi? Where's the tribe of Levi? Why are you shaking your head, Jacob? What? Why not? They didn't get any land. They were dispersed throughout Jacob. Okay? And where's Simeon's tribe? What? Where is it? It's, okay, Judah basically has most of the south. Simeon is in the middle of Judah's plot. Now, what's interesting is when the Israelites come out of Egypt, they're at 60,000. Simeon, 60,000 people in their tribe, one of the largest. By the time they make it into the promised land, they're at 20,000. All the rest of them all pretty much stay even or increase. This one drops by 2/3, 40,000 people. What's happening to Simeon? Dispersed throughout Jacob and scattered throughout Israel. And essentially, we don't have, you said it well, that it basically was just absorbed into Judah itself. So we'd have no reference to the land of Simeon within couple of generations, okay? Judah, let's get Judah in here, fourth son, all right? Now, Reuben's got something negative against him. Simeon and Levi has something negative against him, which means Judah's going to be the one that kind of steps up here. Your brothers will praise you. Judah means praise. Leah says, I'm going to praise you, and I don't care what my husband thinks about me anymore, good or bad. I'm just going to praise you, because that's what Judah means, okay? So Judah just means praise. I ain't worried about that sorry old husband that likes Rachel more than me, all right? Your hand will be on the necks of your enemies, and your father's sons will bow down to you. Judah is a young lion, my son. You return from the kill. He crouches. He lies down like a lion or a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter, this is the important part here for our prophetic. The scepter will not depart from Judah, or the staff from between his feet. Okay, the scepter is what? Who holds a scepter? Kings do. Who holds a staff? Shepherds do. So the shepherd king will come from Judah, pointing directly to whom? Was Jesus a shepherd? Who is the shepherd king? Thank you, David. Good. All right. David, descendant of Judah? Yep. Okay. So the scepter will not depart from Judah. And who is the first king in the line of Judah? Saul was not, right? David was. Okay, so Saul was the first one. He was from Benjamin. Okay, David is going to be replacing him, and now the line of kings will go from David. David is given the promise, from your line, there will become an eternal king who is Christ himself. Okay, so this idea of the scepter and the staff is that shepherd king. Until he whose right it is, all right, that Jesus flag should be going off. It's actually the word Shiloh. So if you know anyone named Shiloh, means he whose right it is. The rightful one is Shiloh. He whose right is comes, and the obedience of the peoples belongs to him. So that's a picture of Christ. He ties his donkey to a vine. What happens when you tie your donkey to a vine? Just think, get in your head a vine and a donkey that wants to not be attached to the vine anymore. How thick is this vine? If you can tie your donkey to this vine, it's not your normal vine, is it? How strong is it? All right, it's talking about the strength of his crops, the strength of his, and they even say that most of the wine grown in Israel is grown in the land of Judah. which is just an interesting point. The colt of his donkey to the choice vine. He washes his clothes in wine and his robes in the blood of grapes. Anything there? Judah is going to wash his clothes in wine, the red on your clothing. What is that referring to? The cross. See how easy this is? All right. And his eyes are darker than wine. His teeth are whiter than milk. He is a good dentist. All right. 13, Zebulun. Now, these get a little weird, so I'm not going to go real deep into many of these. Will live by the seashore, even though that's not where his tribal allotment ends up. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. It's actually just south of Nazareth. And so the Mediterranean is one tribe over, and the Sea of Galilee is one tribe over. So he'll live between, so a lot of people kind of make that, between the seashores, and will be a harbor for ships, and his territory will be next to Sidon, which is Lebanon, so up in the Tel Aviv area, if you're familiar with Israel. So we just don't know what to do with all that. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between the saddlebags. He's strong, but he's lazy. And we see this play out over and over, especially in the conquest. He doesn't conquer all the people in his land. He saw that his resting place was good and that the land was pleasant, so he leaned his shoulder to bear a load and became a forced laborer. So who knows? 16, Dan will judge his people. Dan literally means judge. To Dan is to judge. Samson, one of the judges, comes from the tribe of Dan as one of the tribes of Israel. Listen to this. He will be a snake by the road, a viper beside the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backwards. Now, when your dad is blessing you and he calls you the snake by the road, a viper by the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backward, is that good or bad? You know, you're like a snake by the road, that the guy is riding down the road and the snake jumps out, bites at the heel, and the horse bucks off and he falls off and he dies. That's what you're like, son. Like I said, father of the year. Right? So, and then we have this weird verse here in 18, and I will wait for your salvation, Lord. And we don't know if it has anything to do with the blessing on Dan or not. It's just sort of a random thrown in there moment of, and this idea, wait for your salvation, Lord, Jehovah, Yasha, will wait for Jesus. So again, we get this weird thing that's kind of thrown in there. 19, Gad will be attacked by raiders, but he will attack their heels. Mm-hmm. All right. Some people think because of where it's located, Gad's territory was located directly across from the Jordan River. All right, Manasseh was to the north, so part of the Jordan River and the Sea of Galilee to the north. Benjamin was to the south of that, and so they felt like that was where everybody would try and go through. So they were attacked a lot. Asher's food will be rich, and he will produce royal delicacies, which is why his name is Asher, because that makes him happy. All right, rich food and royal delicacies make him happy. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Now, this is the area that Jesus comes from. This is the Nazareth, Capernaum area. And so there's a lot of people think there's some reference just to the beauty of the nature and work of Christ in this. 22, Joseph is a fruitful vine beside a spring. That's a good thing, all right? His branches climb over the wall. The archers attacked him, shot at him, and were hostile toward him, all past tense things, all right? So has Joseph been attacked, shot at, hostile? Yeah. Yet, even though his bow remained steady and his strong arms were made agile by the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, by the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, by the God of your father who helps you, and by the God, the Almighty who blesses you. All right, now, does that sound like Joseph right there? You were attacked, shot at, hostile, but you remained steady. That sounds exactly like Joseph, all right? 25, by the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you, with blessings of the heavens above, blessings of the deep that lies below, and the blessings of the breasts and the womb. The blessings of your father excel the blessings of my ancestors. Okay, now let me unpack this for a second. Who's doing the talking here? Jacob is talking. He's talking to Joseph, okay? The blessings of your father, Joseph. Joseph, who is your father? Jacob. So he's talking third person. Y'all see it? Okay. So in essence, my blessings, the things with which I've been blessed, excel the blessings of my ancestors. So what is Jacob saying about the blessings he has received from God? Excel the blessings of my ancestors. Who is what? Who is Jacob's ancestors? Isaac and Abraham. Okay, so Jacob is saying, I've been blessed more than Abraham and Isaac together. Okay, so the blessings of your father excel or beyond the blessings of dad and granddad and the bounty of the eternal hills. So he's going all the way back where? Not just, I've been blessed more than Isaac, my father, and Abraham, my grandfather, but I have been blessed more than the bounty of the eternal hills. How far back is he going? Adam. Okay? So essentially what he's saying is, I've been blessed by God more than any man that's ever lived. That's what he's claiming in this moment. May they, the blessings which I have been blessed with, may they rest on the head of Joseph, on the crown of the prince of his brothers. Now that's a blessing. A blessing is not, you're a serpent by the road that makes people fall off their horse. It's, I have been blessed more than any man ever, and I pray that those same blessings fall on your head, my son. Finally, and who gets this blessing? Of course it's Joseph. Of course it's Joseph. Why? Because he is whose son? Rachel's son. All right? And all the rest of them get basically what? I mean, does anybody really get good one other than Judah? And I don't even think he really appreciated Judah that much anyway. Yeah, well, Reuben's is kind of, we call it the butt wipe theory, all right? When you say butt, you wipe out the first part of what you just said. So if someone gives you a compliment and they're saying, wow, you look really good in that, but, so, see, you'll never forget the butt wipe theory. So, welcome to Bible study. It's always a blessing, amen? Yeah, what'd you learn? That's the one thing my kids would pick up. Benjamin, you're a wolf. All right, he's back at it. Now, I thought he liked Benjamin. But Benjamin, you're a wolf. Translation, you're a second child. You're the youngest. You're the baby. You're going to be the stinker, all right? A wolf, he tears his prey, and in the morning, he devours the prey, and in the evening, he divides the plunder. If you go to the back of Judges, we have this crazy story in Judges about a man in Benjamin whose mistress gets raped by somebody, and he chops her up into pieces and sends all the pieces to all the 12 tribes. And a lot of the commentaries point to this kind of behavior as he's crazy, man. He's a wolf. He's just a vicious person. So, all right, and these are the 28. These are the tribes of Israel, 12 in all. And this was what their father said to them. He blessed them, and he blessed each one with a suitable blessing. Thanks for playing, all you guys. So, all right. Then he commanded them, I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave of the field of Ephron the Hittite. The cave is in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in the land of Canaan. This is the field Abraham purchased from Ephron the Hittite as a burial site. Why did he buy it, by the way? We talked about this a long time ago. This is Genesis 23, if you want to write that out there. Because he owns it. Yeah. Why didn't he just accept it as just take it? Yeah, the gift can be revoked. The gift can be like, well, yeah, I gave it to you, but I'm taking it back. And why was it so precious to him? Because that's where he buried his wife. Okay. All right. 31, Abraham and his wife Sarah are buried there. Isaac and his wife Rebekah are buried there. And I buried Leah there. All right. But again, Rachel, no, she died on the way. And so she was buried where she was. The field and the cave in it were purchased from the Hittites. When Jacob had finished instructing his sons, he drew his feet into the bed and died. And he was gathered to his people. All right. So like King Lear. And he died. All right. Chapter 50. Then Joseph, leaning over his father's face, wept and kissed him. All right, because why? Why was he the one doing all this and not Reuben and Simeon and Levi? They were, it's a blessing thing. What the world? Still mad at dad on that one, all right? But this tells you about the relationship between Joseph and Jacob, all right? He commanded his servants, who were the physicians, to embalm his father. So they embalmed Israel. And they took 40 days to complete this, for embalming takes that long. The Egyptians mourned him for 70 days, which was the equivalent of how long pharaohs were mourned in this time, which is interesting that he got that kind of honor. When the days of mourning were over, Joseph said to Pharaoh's household, "If I have found favor with you, please tell Pharaoh that my father made me take an oath, saying, 'I'm about to die. You must bury me there in the tomb that I made for myself in the land of Canaan. Now let me go and bury my father, then I will return.'" Interesting. What if he says, "And I'm not going to return. I'm going to stay there. I've served you well for the last 27 years. I'm done. I'm just going to take my family. We're going to go back to Canaan." Yeah. But would that be a reasonable thing? Say it one more time. It's not. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? It's not who Joseph is. So he's going to continue to do that? Okay. All right. I mean, he has been there 27 years serving him. He's 57 years old now. He's going to live another 53 years. And he says, "We're going to go bury him, and then we'll come back." I just think that's interesting. There's a moment there that if you know how the story's going to end, what are you yelling at Joseph right now? What are you yelling? Don't go back. Don't, whatever you do, just take what you have and go back home and stay there. But he does. He says, "We'll come back." So Pharaoh said, "Go, bury your father in keeping with your oath." And notice he doesn't say, "Go, bury your father in keeping with the oath, and then make sure you come back here." He never says that. So I think it's a fair point to say he may have just let him go. But again, then the prophecy, the sign of the promise would not be fulfilled. 7, then Joseph went to bury his father, and look at the entourage. All Pharaoh's servants, the elders of his household, we're not sure who the his is, all right? All the elders of the land of Egypt went with him. And notice, who's getting this? Jacob, just an Israelite, literally some guy that wandered around in Canaan. And yet all of Egypt is following, all the royalty of Egypt. 8, along with all of Joseph's household, his brothers, and his father's household, only their children, their sheep, and their cattle were left. Okay, so please don't read that only their children, meaning they're like 5-year-olds were left with the cattle, all right, and all the parents went away. Okay, this is clearly beyond that. All right, left in the land of Goshen. Horses and chariots went up with them. It was a very impressive procession. I would think so, all of Pharaoh's people. When they reached the threshing floor of Atad, which is across the Jordan, they lamented and wept loudly, and Joseph mourned 7 days for his father. When the Canaanites, inhabitants of the land, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, "This is a solemn mourning on the part of the Egyptians. Therefore the place is named Abel Mizraim. It is across from the Jordan." All right? Moses is just trying to tell us, hey, this was a pretty big deal. This is a big deal. And even the Canaanites noticed. 12, so Jacob's sons did for him what he had commanded them. They carried him in the land of Canaan, buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field near Mamre, which Abraham had purchased as a burial site from Ephron the Hittite. And after Joseph buried his father, he returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone with him to bury his father. So they all came back to the land of Egypt. Okay? 16. Here's where a little bit of fun happens. So they, Joseph's brothers, all right, when they saw their father was dead. Okay, now chronologically, what happened here in the text? Have we gone and done the whole burial thing and the procession and the mourning for 70 days and all this stuff, and then Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead after all that happened? Y'all with me? So chronologically, you have to read like Hebrews right, okay? And so you have all of this story, and then we have this moment of, let's step back into this moment and chase this moment down here for a second. So when Joseph's brothers saw their father was dead, and when did that take place? Shortly after he did what? Died. Okay. They went, oh, Dad's not breathing anymore. They saw that his father was dead. Okay. Not 70 days later. Okay. They said to one another, which is just funny because they're still feeling guilty 27 years later. If Joseph is holding a grudge against us, he will certainly repay us for all the suffering, the kakos we caused him. Now, what does this tell you about his brothers? How many times has this been brought up? How many times have we seen it referred to of, oh, this is happening to us because of what we did when Joseph was, literally 40 years earlier, when Joseph was 17. Imagine carrying that around with you everywhere you go. And not, even though Joseph has said, no, I forgive you. It's not a big deal. It's, it happened, God meant it for good, all this stuff. All right, but you're still walking around. Even to the point of Dad just died. Maybe Joseph was playing nice because Dad was alive. Now Dad's dead, and now he's going to get us back. They're still carrying this around with it, which should tell you what they would do if someone who wronged them, right? Because people who don't forgive themselves generally aren't going to forgive you. Be careful with people like that, all right? Be very, very careful. I love that they use the word kakos right there. That's one of my favorite words. 16, because it's mean, horrible, evil. So they, the brothers, sent this made up, that's my word I put in there, this made up message to Joseph. Let's just make up a story and tell him this. Before he died, here's the story, the message to Joseph. Before he died, your father gave a command. Say this to Joseph, please forgive your brothers' transgressions and their sin, the suffering, the evil they caused you. Therefore, please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father. And how does Joseph respond? Joseph wept when the message came to him. Why? Why does he weep in this moment? Is he mad because he's not going to be able to take vengeance? Is he mad because supposedly Dad told him to make sure you forgive him? Why is he weeping? Yeah, they just don't get it. And he's sad that they don't get that he has forgiven them, all right? And I think Joseph's very emotional anyway, right? Have you noticed this? How many times have we seen, and Joseph was about to cry, or Joseph was weeping, or Joseph had to leave the room. He was a very emotional person, all right? And now in this moment, how long do you think it was before he realized this was a fake message? Immediately. I mean, he is pretty smart, all right? So, and he's going, these guys, they think they're making something, they think they're, going to make something up, and I'm going to believe them that Dad really said this when they're just trying to, and he's like, why are they doing this? Why can't they just let go of what they did? Why can't they let go of their past? Which, if you've ever dealt with somebody who just can't let go of their past, even if it's to harm you and you've forgiven them, it's very frustrating. It's like, you just got to let this go. There's nothing between us. Just let this go. All right, 18. And how do you think their brothers felt when he started weeping at this message? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? No, seriously. They get the message, Dad told you not to forgive us. What does that mean? Is he really not going to do it, or is he moved with this that we're okay, or are we not okay? All right, it's just one of the touch and go. Then his brothers also came to him, bowed down before him. All right, and how many times have we seen this? How many times have his brothers fulfilled the dream? Yeah, over and over and over. Okay, they need knee pads. Okay, bowed down before him and said, "We are your what? We're your slaves." How are they accepting? What kind of treatment are they accepting? That they have done something wrong, just like Benjamin had done something wrong. That's kind of the way their attitude was, even though it's been 40 years now. Okay, 19. Here's the line everybody knows from the story here. But Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. Me phobos, do not fear." Okay? So all those times when the Bible says 365 times, "Do not be afraid," this is one of them. Okay? So you can take that for what it's worth. The other times is what happens? The angel shows up. "Don't be afraid." Okay, because you're scary, man. All right, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? Literally in the Greek, it's am I God? Meaning what? Am I the judge and the jury? Am I the one who's going to inflict harm and punishment on you? No. 20, here's the line. You planned evil against me, down on me, kata, down onto me. God planned it. Okay, what's the it? You planned evil against me or down onto me. God planned it for good, for agathos. What's the it? The whole situation? Their evil deed? So did God tell them to do this? How would you describe the dynamic here of God's sovereignty, their free will? How are you going to explain this? That you planned this evil and carried it out, but God planned it. You're carrying this out for good to bring about this present result, the survival of many people. How does that work? Does God use the evil deeds of other people for good? Why are you being emphatic about saying allows it? You got 3 minutes. Come on, Benny. You open the door, man. Why do you keep saying allows it, allows it, allows it? Because you're contrasting it with what? Being the causing factor? Because that would make God the author or the cause of what? Evil. Okay? So God, in Benny's word, allows it. Did God plan it or did God allow it? Hold on, I got he used it over here. But if God knew it, do they have the free will to do it or to not do it? But if God knows you're going to do something, do you have the free will to not do it? But if God knows you're going to do something and you have the free will to not do it, and you don't do what he knows you will do, then he doesn't know. This is the fun. We'll get into this a little bit more on Sunday. But here's the dilemma. You have free will, and God is absolutely omniscient and sovereign. These two things cannot coexist because they can't coexist. Not in our brains. In our brains, they cannot coexist. But when you have an eternal being and not linear beings, they can. So God being an eternal being outside of time, place, all of these things, can be outside of that structure where we operate on a linear fashion. All right? And that's like way too in the weeds right there. But I just wanted you to think for a little bit and kind of go, all right? But yeah, he's saying, you guys did this evil, but God was going to use it, to use Whitney's word. And this idea of the word plan in the Greek, it's the word boulomai. Boulomai is, you have thelomai, which is, what does God want? What is the will of God? That's sort of in the immediate. Thelomai is in the immediate. And it was God's will that I walk across the street. All right? It's God's boulomai will to create and to die on the cross for all humanity. You see the difference there? Thelomai is in the immediate. Boulomai is in the big picture. Okay? And God's immediate will is this, and this. And his boulomai, his overarching will, is our Christ atoning for our sins from the foundation of the world. That's his plan, okay? And the word that's used here is that boulomai. It's this overarching plan. You had an overarching plan to kill me, but God was going to use that desire to help to preserve life, all right? So that's I just wanted you to see those things, all right? Therefore, don't be afraid. I will take care of you and not repay you, all right? And your little ones too, and your little dog too. And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. He spoke from his heart to them. And Joseph and his father's household remained in Egypt. Joseph lived 110 years. All right? Now, here's the interesting thing. Joseph is going to die at 110, which puts us approximately 285 years into the 400-year time window given in Genesis 15. Y'all with me? Because you're going to need to remember this in 2 weeks when we come back and start talking about Exodus. All right? So from the time Abraham is given the promise and the sign of there will be 400 years, you will be strangers, enslaved, and oppressed, and then I'm going to bring you back in the fourth generation. There will be 400 years. And at the death of Joseph, we're at 285 of those have expired. So when we say the children of Israel were not enslaved for 400 years, this is what we're talking about, okay? And I'll clear that up when we get into all that. He saw Ephraim's sons to the third generation, which is important because that's really butting up right against the Exodus. The sons of Manasseh's son Machir were recognized by Joseph. And Joseph said to his brothers that evidently were still alive, I'm about to die, but God will certainly come to your aid and bring you up from this land to the land he promised. Again, there's that promise of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Joseph made the sons of Israel take an oath. When God comes to your aid, you are to carry my bones up from here. Joseph died at 110. They embalmed him and placed him in a coffin in Egypt. And then in Exodus 13, when they do indeed exit, what do they take with them? Joseph's bones. And they take them and they bury them there in that cave at Machpelah. So, whew. We made it through all the stories of Genesis. We got it? Got it all down? Like I said, we'll take next week off just to let my brain relax for a week, and then we'll come back we'll pick up the story, like I said, with Exodus, and pretty much pick up right here where we left off, which is, I think, what Moses was doing all along. And then we're not going to go through all of Exodus because I don't want to try and teach you a lesson on how to sew the yarn into the tapestry of the tabernacle and build the lampstand and how to put the bread on the table correctly. Yeah, that's that read through the Bible thing. You're cruising through Genesis. Exodus is pretty good till you hit about 21, 22, and it starts to go, what in the world? A slave and this, and can't let your donkey out with your ox, and then you get the little bit of the golden calf. It picks up there for a second, and then it's right back down into here's how to build all the implements for the ark. And then you hit, by that time, if you made it and you're still rolling, you're awesome. Then you hit Leviticus with sacrifice and offerings and sacrifice and that. And then Numbers just gets caught up in all the numbers. Deuteronomy picks back up because you get a little pep rally, you get a recap. And then Joshua, Judges, now you're rolling again till you hit the backside of Joshua. And it's like, this will be your land, and this will be your land, and it's next to this tree and next to that river, and this is your land. And it's like, oh, what happened? In Judges, it's just funny after a while. So anyway. All right. Any questions, thoughts? Cool. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for walking us through all of these amazing stories. Father, I thank you for all of the times we have seen references to Christ, to the redemption that he was going to bring us. Father, we thank you so much for your sovereign will, that you are absolutely in control, that you are indeed sovereign over the affairs of men. And Father, we thank you for that. We thank you that you exercise that sovereignty to bring about our salvation through your Son, Christ. And I thank you for telling us the story over and over and over and over again, so that we might just get it through our thick head sometimes that you really do love us that much. So go with us from here. Thank you for each and every person that's been here tonight. I pray that you would reward them for the time they spent here, and just bless our church family, Father, and pray these things.